And I think that for the most part, some of the things that you and Senator Sarbanes and others laid out in terms of how we might be able to turn this economy around might be of some interest to our viewers this morning, because I think that many of them they're simply searching for what we're doing, and it seems to a large number of people that nothing is happening now.
Well, Senator Sarbanes, and Senator Sarbanes is chairman of the Joint Economic Committee, a very brilliant man, I might say. You and I were chatting earlier. He's a Rhodes Scholar and a distinguished graduate of Princeton University, Harvard Law School, a self-made man who came from really very humble circumstances to educate himself. But he's brilliant, and I've had the opportunity to collaborate with him, work with him, to try to develop an economic plan that we think will stimulate the economy. And what we want to do, Dr. Haney, is to take some of the funds that are presently being spent on the military and for military procurement and flow some of those funds into the civilian economy. That is infrastructure development. What I mean by infrastructure development: repairing roads, building bridges, building schools, hospitals, wastewater treatment plants, water lines, all the sorts of things that will make establish an infrastructure in which industry can move in and work out of and create jobs. We also want to flow some of that money into retraining workers. We find that so many workers are being displaced or losing their jobs as industries move offshore out of the country or as an industry shuts down. These are good citizens. We have an obligation to retrain them, to train them for new jobs, to put them back to work. And interestingly enough, one of the ways to really reduce the federal budget deficit is to put people to work. We find that for every 1% the unemployment rate goes up, and that when it goes up 1%, that means about another 1 million people roughly have lost their jobs. Do you know it costs the federal government about $30 billion in lost taxes that these unemployed people would be paying in if they were working? So one of the ways to deal with the deficit is to put people to work and get a full employment economy again.
Well, Senator Sasser, do you think that you're moving in that direction in terms of trying to get that kind of legislation?
Well, I must say to you, in all honesty, Dr. Haney, that we're not getting any support out of President Bush and his administration in trying to do this. We're going to continue to try to persuade the administration that we want to work with them to try to develop an economic stimulus program for all of the country. But so far, they have resisted our efforts. And I think it's really critical that we get some economic stimulus going in the country, because if we let ourselves just sort of wobble out of this recession with no substantial economic growth, we fall off into another recession a year or two down the line, we're going to see the standard of living and the quality of life for all of our people continue to decline. And I don't think anybody wants that.
I think one of the ideas that you introduced during that C-SPAN, I think it was C-SPAN, I think I said CNN earlier, I think it was
Many
C-SPAN.
people get it confused.
But I think one of the ideas that you introduced during that time was that this recession not only has national impact, but it also is a drag on the local and state economy. Why don't you explain that and explain again, Senator, the difference between the so-called firewall. Many of our audience viewers might not understand about the difference between the military aspect of the budget and the social aspect of the budget. And why don't you talk about that for a while?
Well, Dr. Haney, I want to say that you are a very astute watcher of C-SPAN. You to pick up these things. But number one, the state and local governments, the state of Tennessee, the city of Nashville, as a result of the economic recession, less taxes are being paid in because people are unemployed. They in turn are laying off city or state employees and also damping down